Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Today I'd like to talk with you about something that's personally a real hopeful game for me coming up in the future. I'm talking about the recently announced Magic Legends, a all-new MMO Action RPG set in the Magic the Gathering universe. Now, I've been pretty much a lifelong fan of both of those things, Magic the Gathering and MMOs. For that reason, I'm pretty damn excited about Magic Legends in concept. We first heard about this several weeks back at the Game Awards, and what we got initially was pretty bare bones in terms of information. We know it's an MMO, we know it's gonna be about Magic the Gathering, and we saw what amounted to just a cinematic trailer showing several characters in the universe, but that's basically it. Now, over time, we've gotten a lot more details about some of what are gonna be the systems in the game, like how the game is going to be structured. A lot of this coming through their official Discord server, as well as various social media posts over time. So I want to talk about kind of what we know at the moment about Magic Legends and what we're expecting the game to be. So let's go over again the basics. Once more, Magic Legends is going to be an MMO Action RPG set in the Magic the Gathering universe where we become a Planeswalker. We're going to choose our path through the planes, collect spells to create powerful hands, and control the chaos of battle as we fight to save the multiverse from its greatest threat yet. So big looming danger coming in, think probably Nico Bolas style, threatening to destroy the multiverse, and we as Planeswalkers have to do what we can to fend back the incoming doom. So let's first talk about who is making the game. Magic Legends is going to be developed by Cryptic Studios. There's a good chance you've heard of some of their games in the past. They've made Neverwinter, Star Trek Online, Champions Online, and City of Heroes and Villains. Now, in addition to being developed by Cryptic Studios, it's also being published by Perfect World Entertainment. These two companies have worked closely together on a few of the titles that I just mentioned, and that's where actually some of the concern that people have for this game is coming, because we know that Magic Legends is going to be free to play, and we've seen what free to play Cryptic and Perfect World games look like, and it's not good. Well, not even so much that the games aren't good, because I actually have pretty good memories of Neverwinter. Like, I remember enjoying playing that game, but from what I've heard from people who stuck with that game and some other games that they've made, the monetization system in those titles has just not been great. Pay to win stuff, or just kind of predatory microtransactions. The game trying to get you to spend a lot of money. I want to touch on that a little bit later, but first I want to go into some more details again about kind of what we've learned about what Magic Legends is going to be. So first, let's talk about our character. We're going to be playing as a Planeswalker, and they've said that we will be choosing from 5 different classes, but not to worry about picking just one, because we can switch between all 5 as you play. So 5 classes, fairly safe to assume those will be tied directly to the 5 colors in Magic the Gathering, and each of those colors tend to have their kind of roles, if you will. Like, we can probably safely assume we'll be getting healing through the white and green mana source classes, and that we'll be having some sort of control magic through the blue mana source class, some sort of death magic and fire damage from the black and red magic source class. You know, we make these kind of assumptions about what these 5 classes and the 5 colors will mean in terms of gameplay when it comes to an MMORPG sense. I think it's also worth noting that they've specifically called this an MMO Action RPG. Now, that can kind of be taken in one of 2 ways. When you hear Action RPG, many times in my mind, I think of the hack and slash variety of things like Diablo and Path of Exile. Those are games that are called Action RPG, but they're viewed from that top-down perspective. But you could also view MMO Action RPG more along the lines of, say, something like Terra. In fact, if you look at the games that Cryptic has made, that entire list I gave you, they are MMOs. So I'm quite confident when they say MMO Action RPG that it's more likely they're talking about the traditional MMO camera behind the character perspective, not this top-down isometric, but that's kind of left up to a bit of interpretation because, you know, at this moment we haven't seen any gameplay, so there's still a lot of speculation going on. I think either way it will be interesting. This idea of having these 5 classes that we can just swap between at any time. In an MMO, that's kind of strange to know that everyone else that I see in the game is going to have access to all the same 5 classes. I'm going to assume, though, that there will be some sort of specialization that comes from this, where you kind of choose to, I really want to focus on the white mana character class, and I'm going to put a lot of my effort and skills and abilities and stuff into that one, so that will be my preferred preferred class, even though I can technically swap between all 5 as I play. I guess it'll be interesting to see how they choose to work that. Next up, they say that we can walk our own path, that there are going to be various planes that we have to cross to save the multiverse, but we get to choose how we go through them. Now, what immediately comes to mind when I read that is this idea that these different planes in the multiverse will just be the different zones within the MMO, and how we progress through them and which ones we choose to start with is totally up to us. And that makes me think of a system similar to what ESO does, where they've got this entire continent and all these different zones and areas, but there's no level requirements to any one of them, and you can just pick which one that you want to start with and, again, choose your own path as you will. Now, the next point has to do with the card aspect and the spells in Magic the Gathering. We will be strategically choosing the spells in our hand because they are drawn at random as you fight. Again, when I'm thinking about what this means in terms of gameplay mechanics, that we will have these 5 classes that we can swap between on the fly. Each of the classes will probably have these set in stone capabilities. You know, the red guy can cast a fireball and a meteor and some whatever, and the white character gets to cast a healing spell or maybe do an area destruction spell. But then on top of that, we will be acquiring spells and placing them into a hand, and then those spells will be randomly activating within combat. I've seen stuff like this in MMOs. For example, in WoW, they've got the rogue specialization where there's some randomization with the rolling of the dice, deciding kind of what buff that you get, and then kind of flowing with that. I'm assuming that that's what that is kind of going to mean here, that we will get to pick kind of our suite of abilities that will be deemed our hand, and then those will randomly pop up in combat. Randomization, I know not everybody loves it. It is a big part of a lot of RPGs. If we're not talking about skill randomization, at least like the numbers and damage values and all of that stuff, and it appears randomization, like in Magic the Gathering and like in a lot of MMOs, will be here present in Magic Legends. Talking about spells and cards, they say collect and upgrade. We will discover a myriad of spells and collect spell fragments to make them more powerful. And then the final big point that we've learned is this fight alone or together. They say that we can choose to traverse the planes alone or with up to 2 other planeswalkers. Really interesting. I think initially I saw a reaction to this of people saying parties of 3, this is an MMO, but the Holy Trinity, a group of 3 is perfectly fine. We got someone who focuses on damage, tank, and defensiveness. In fact, one of the images that we pulled from their Twitch page shows what looks to be like someone taking the defensive role, someone healing, and someone dealing damage. It's a pretty clear representation of this 3-party system that they're talking about. I think the biggest question still in my mind is how the gameplay is presented. Again, they're calling it an MMO Action RPG. Cryptic has made plenty of MMOs in the past. How is this game going to be presented? Is it going to be that traditional MMO? Is it going to look something like what they've made in the past, like Neverwinter, for example? Or is it going to be more Diablo-style action RPG? I'm super curious, especially with this idea that we've got 5 classes that we can swap between on the fly. There's still, of course, a lot of questions. They have said that a lot more information about this game is going to start rolling out in January, and let's talk a bit more about when this game is going to be available. There's no release date at the moment, but Magic Legends is going to be entering beta in 2020. You can sign up to get into that beta on their official website. And I also found from another link that the Cryptic Studios have actually been working on this game since 2017, which isn't too surprising because I've been hearing rumors about a Magic MMO for quite some time now. Really cool thing conceptually. Like, I love Magic the Gathering. I love and I'm so excited to check out new MMOs, but obviously still a lot of questions about this game. And it does have a pretty big concern given the companies involved who's developing and who's publishing this game, Cryptic Studios and Perfect World. They've made some games with not so great monetization in it. And you add on top of that the Magic the Gathering element, if we're being perfectly honest, is in its very nature a pay-to-win game with, you know, you look at like competitive current decks costing hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars, let alone if we talk about all of the extended formats with the older cards, which by themselves can cost like 10 grand. Like, as much as I love Magic, I adore it, I grew up with the game. I mean, it's like the literal definition of a pay-to-win game. You don't need the most expensive deck to do well in Magic, but still, a lot of the very competitive decks do end up being fairly pricey. So with all that said, we've got companies that have made some good games, but with some not great monetization. We add in Magic Magic the Gathering and the randomness of the cards and the various powers of those cards, and then we add on top of that the fact that this is going to be a free-to-play MMO. Boy, oh boy, it's like a recipe for just shitty microtransactions to be absolutely infesting this game. Can't make that assumption quite yet. Looking at history of these companies though, that concern I think is fairly reasonable, but we'll have to see what happens, and I'm excited to learn more, and of course, I'm most excited to see some actual gameplay. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you learned a little bit more about Magic Legends today. There's still a lot that we don't know, I realize, but hey, I'll keep following things up. I'll keep you guys updated as we get some more big information, and yeah, let's see some gameplay. Hope it's good. It's almost guaranteed to be pay to win. It's free to play MMO and it's Magic the Gathering. It's the perfect recipe for a pay to win game.